Which state is the most underrated in producing good football teams? But the answer is the great state of Utah. They're putting out more winning products than Apple right now.
They were going to use the Utah game to get right. Utah's not a team you just use to get right. That's not them.
What is going on? Welcome to Life Elevated, State of Utah Football. I'll be covering everything football related in the state of Utah. We'll start up north in Logan, head all the way down to Provo, and we'll even highlight some high school athletes to support on those Friday night lights. So let's start in Logan with the Utah State Aggies. Now, with Blake Anderson out of the picture, who will be calling plays? Blake Anderson game planned the entire week, and he called the plays in the game. The man now in charge of that duty is Kyle Cefalo. Man, he is the fourth-year man at Utah State. He was the passing game coordinator and the wide receivers coach the first 2 years of that program. He was elevated to the co-offense coordinator along and kept that wide receiver coach title. Now, Cefalo is a smart mind. He's someone that does have 11 years of coaching experience. I'm not too concerned about the overall structure of this offense. It'll look a lot like what, it has in the past. He is a developer of wide receivers and someone that should earn that full title of the offense coordinator. Now, he did come from Arkansas State with Blake Anderson, so he's been entrenched into that system. Now, I do expect there to be some mesh, that he wants to install, that he wants to run. So I'm sure we'll see some different kind of wrinkles here and there. But for the most part, it should be similar. You should see those wide splits for the receivers, a quick style of a game plays, trying to get the snap off with 25 seconds left on the play clock. I would kind of expect to kind of have a more diverse run game and more run packages than what we saw with Blake Anderson, and then probably highlight some more wide receiver routes. A lot of times with Blake Anderson, he would kind of switch the routes, but keep the same. Royals will line up at the top, and then you would have Davis at the bottom, and then they would just switch the routes. I would expect more route concepts and more route freedoms just with a CFO being that wide receivers coach. So I do expect some more freedom for Jalen Royals this year to kind of operate on some option routes. So that should give some more explosiveness to the offense. Now, on the defensive side, to me, that's where it's going to be interesting to see what happens. What is the pecking order? Said Douglas, he is the run game coordinator and the defensive line coach. Douglas spent the past 3 years at Buffalo being their defensive line coach there. I don't think you add more to his plate just because he already has a lot. The guy that I expect to be named the passing game coordinator and possibly a bump in title is Jalen Ortiz. He's currently the cornerbacks coach. He spent the past 2 years at Nevada. Ortiz was on the same Oregon staff in 2020 that Nate Dreiling was on. So both guys, they've worked together, they mesh well together, and they both have that Mario Cristobal tree. So I do think that similar lineage and similar tutelage, I do think that Ortiz will be the guy that is leaned on for this defense. So I fully expect Ortiz to be the guy that kind of takes on that bigger role as Dreiling becomes that kind of a hands-off, more of that CEO type of role as the interim head coach. There's a lot of turmoil going on with Utah State, and Dreiling is definitely going to need someone that he trusts to run that defense, and that is going to be Jalen Ortiz. Now, kind of want to talk about some positional battles here. Now, who really is the quarterback one? Now, Spencer Petras, he is the quarterback one. He was the quarterback one in the spring showcase. Bryson Barnes was the quarterback two. Neither of them looked really comfortable at all during the entire showcase. The offense didn't really flow with either individual, to be honest. It was very choppy. Neither guy is really comfortable in that kind of a RPO type of a system. Barnes is more of that athlete, but what he kind of lacks is that throwing. He's not a very good thrower. With Petrus, he is a little bit better of a thrower, but he's not going to be someone that you expect to kind of take those runs on those RPOs. So it's going to be interesting to see how fall camp kind of goes underway. And I just really don't know how that's going to unfold. Everything that I hear is going to be Petrus. But after the spring showcase, Utah State went out and they grabbed CJ Tiller from Boise State. Now, Tiller, he's that prototypical quarterback for this kind of an offense. Tiller, he is behind the learning curve a little bit, but he's really only 6 months behind if you think about it, because the other two were also transfers. They came in at the beginning of the year. And then Tiller came in, I believe, at the very beginning of May or at the end of April. So he only has about 6 months behind in that kind of a learning curve. So I don't think it's too much, but I just don't see any upside in Petrus. He is that type of quarterback that I see starting the season, and it ends up getting benched after the non-conference schedule. The Aggies then, what I imagine is that they turn over to Tiller at some point in the season to kind of add some spark, because there is a lot of chaos within the program. And I think at the end of the day, if the Aggies start off 1-4, 1-3, 1-5, I think they pull the plug on Petrus. Barnes, I just don't think is the guy. I think they just grabbed him to kind of weaken Utah. And then, you kind of put CJ Tiller in there. You let him run around. You let him make plays. You let him be a spark plug for the offense. And then him being the guy in 2025. But let's head down the 89 to the 15 freeway and down to Salt Lake City and check in with the Utah Utes. Now, with the Utes, the main question is going to be their health. The Utes were decimated by injuries last year, so much so that they had to use a safety as their running back, Sion Vaki. And he ended up getting, drafted because of that. So if we take a look at the main weapons, quarterback Cam Rising, he was out all last season. Running back Micah Bernard, he played partial of that first game. He kind of got hurt. Wasn't reported that he would miss the rest of the season, but he came back for the bowl game because he wanted to prove to everyone, including the coaching staff, that he was going to be ready, that he is the guy. So he is full go. And tight end Brant Kuthie, he is someone that is that physically gifted tight end that I do see getting drafted in the NFL, but he does have a long history of injuries. Well, right now, all are healthy, with fall camp. The Utes, they have a veteran team on offense. We know that their defense will always be top-notch just because of how that program is run. But the Utes, they're going to have a new look secondary this year. They do return senior corner Zemiah Vaughn. They also have true sophomore Tao Johnson, who's also returning. But they're going to have two new guys, and they're going to have three guys at new positions. And that's because Johnson, he was the starting nickel last year, and he started all 13 games. He's going to move over to safety this year. Now, Coach Witt, he's come out and said that his best asset is his speed, and he is a natural free safety. When I looked into it, he played 143 snaps last year at that position. Coach Witt said he was someone that was just too talented to kind of keep on the bench, so they had him at the nickel spot just to kind of get that speed onto the field. And this year, he will be roaming that safety position. With Vaughn, he had 53 tackles last year, 5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 7 pass deflections. And then, with cornerbacks coach Sharif Shah, he said that, he was the key player for them last year. He was the glue last year, and he's expected to be the glue this year as well. Now, we're going to have other positions open on that secondary, and, it's going to, I would likely say, be occupied by a senior incoming transfer from Georgia Tech, Kenan Johnson. With Johnson, he's played in 45 games. He started 8 games last year, had 29 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 4 pass deflections, and 1 interception. And then the other guy that I think is going to occupy that nickel spot is going to be sophomore Smith Snowden. It's a revamped secondary, but it's one that's very exciting. They'll be in a test with the Big 12 and with a lot of high octane offenses, with the Big 12 defenses are optional, but Utah, that's not the case. So it's going to be a real interesting landscape for that Big 12 because Utah is that physical smash mouth defense who will show up every week. And the Big 12 isn't used to that. So, it's going to be kind of fun to see how, this unfolds. Utah does come in the Big 12 with a senior laden offense and a defense, that's always going to be well coached. They're going to be, kind of disciplined. And so that leads us into our position battle. It's going to be a three-way battle for that final spot, as safety. We have Stanford transfer, Alaka'i Gilman, sophomore Nate Ritchie, and then fellow sophomore Jonathan Hall. Now, with Ritchie, he played 154 snaps at safety last year. He made 3 starts, had 22 tackles and 1 sack. He was a full-time starter back in 2020. He then went on a 2-year mission, and he came back last year. He was kind of slow to start, which is expected for guys that have been away for 2 years. So with this past season under his belt, with spring practices and now with spring or fall camp, it'll be interesting to see if his legs are back under for him and see if he's able to kind of take that job again. The other guy we talked about is Jonathan Hall. He played 59 snaps last year. He made one start. He appeared in 6 games overall. He's got 19 tackles and 1 sack. So he's someone that, I think he's someone more for the future. I don't think you kind of put him into that kind of role this year, but he will be a good depth piece. And then the last guy is Gilman. He played all 4 years at Stanford, was a starter last year, made 50 tackles, 1 interception, 4 pass deflections in the now defunct Pac-12. He did play in 9 games before missing the final kind of stretch of the season. So he does come in. It'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. Gilman was an all Pac-12 honorable mention, so he does have, that kind of worthiness, I guess, to kind of get that job. But we'll have to see as fall camp goes on the way of who wins that kind of final job for that safety spot. Now, let's head back down to the 15 and down to Provo and talk some BYU Cougars here. LJ Martin, he's going to be leaned on this year. He's going to be the offense. The Cougars will definitely need him to take the next step. Aiden Robbins, he's shockingly declared for the NFL draft. BYU didn't really go in the portal to kind of grab anyone. They do have a couple of guys that are coming back from their mission to kind of fill that back room, but there's no one that is there to kind of really earn any carries, to be perfectly honest. This should be Martin's backfield. He should be in line for a big season. I would not be surprised if he gets north of 250 carries and get up to possibly 300 overall touches if you include his receiving work. If BYU has any chance to kind of win games this year, they're going to need him, and they're going to be dependent on him in the run game as well as the passing game. We kind of talked about last week, with the quarterback position, it is up for grab. Russ Liff, he wasn't very good last year, and then Jerry Bohannon is Jerry Bohannon. So, they're going to have to lean on Martin in the passing game, in the rushing game. And if he gets over 300 touches this year, he might be in line for over 1,300 yards of all-purpose yards. And, as a true freshman last year, he looked pretty good. I was pretty excited for him last year when watching him. Last year in fall camp, the buzz was all about Martin. It wasn't about Robbins. Everyone was saying that Martin is a different kind of a mover, a different kind of athlete that they just simply don't have. And, with that expected natural progression from last year to this year, it's easy to see why the people in Provo are very excited for Martin for the upcoming season with his expanded role. Now, I kind of want to talk about the passing game. With the passing game, they're going to be relying on Chase Roberts. Chase Roberts, he's that glue guy. With Roberts, he's going to be that safety blanket. He's going to be the guy that's used short to intermediate because you're not going to have a very good passing game. Whoever it is, that is the starter, you're not going to ask them to kind of complete those deep crossers. You're going to ask them to kind of complete short slants. You're going to have to, complete like dump offs, just move the chains, just pick up positive yards. That's pretty much what you're going to ask the quarterback to do. And in that passing game, it's going to be Roberts. He's going to be leaned on. He's going to be the guy, and he's always been that dependable guy. And he's someone that he might get 70 receptions this year, and he might not get more than 700 yards with those opportunities, because whoever is named the starting quarterback, the opposing defenses, they're going to put 8 in a box, and they're going to force BYU to kind of throw the ball. So those are the two guys for the Cougars that I expect to have big roles this year. Now, let's finish with some of the top high school prospects in the state. Now, the first prospect that I want to talk about is quarterback Jett Niu. He is 6'2", 185 pounds. He is part of the 2025 class. He is a 3-star in the composites. He attends Lehigh High School. In his first year as a starter in 2023, he completed 65.3% of his passes, threw for over 3,000 yards, had 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He has made his commitment to Appalachian State, and he's going to fit that system. And that's going to be a fun system for Niu when he gets his opportunity to kind of compete for that job. Now, for those of you who haven't seen him play, he does show good mobility in the pocket. He is someone that will climb the pocket. I love quarterbacks that will climb the pocket instead of kind of navigating to the right and kind of getting that clear area. He is someone that is not fazed by defenders in his face. He is very calm, very poised. As a thrower, he does have good ball placement. He is a very good point guard. He will distribute the ball, and he is someone that's going to get their team ahead of the chains. I really do like that about him, and he plays well within a system. Now, he does have a brother who also plays at Lehigh, and that is class of 26 tight end Bryton Niu. Now, Bryton is currently a 3-star for the 26 class. He is 6'5", 215 pounds. He is someone that is a very fun prospect. He is currently still kind of open in his recruiting for this upcoming season at Lehigh. I do plan on kind of going to a couple other games and watching the brothers play their final season together before, older brother Jett going to Appalachian State. But that will be a fun offense for Lehigh, and it's going to be something that I'm going to kind of, enjoy watching up close. Now, that concludes our episode for today. I want to, kind of thank you for tuning in. Utah, once again, is an underrated state for football, but we'll put the spotlight on it for you, and we'll see you next week on Life Elevated.
Which state is the most underrated in producing good football teams? But the answer is the great state of Utah. They're putting out more winning products than Apple right now.
They were going to use the Utah game to get right. Utah is not a team you just use to get right. That's not them.